The world no longer asks who the strongest sorcerer is. The real question now is whether the world itself can still survive him. Long after ancient legends faded and old monsters were buried by time, one name continues to stand at the center of every prophecy, every fear, and every future war: Yuji Itadori. His power is no longer measured by battles won, but by the silence that follows his arrival, the kind of silence that tells even gods they are no longer in control. What began as a boy fighting curses has evolved into something far more dangerous. A being who does not age, does not weaken, and does not stop growing. 83 years after the final battle, the accumulation of technique, experience, and impossible power has reshaped Yuji into a force the world was never designed to contain. This is not the story of a hero rising. This is the story of what happens after a hero becomes inevitable. Oh yeah, so we can keep interacting and making the anime storytelling world even more fun together. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments to keep the vibe going. Alright guys, let's jump straight into the discussion. Let's go. If we are talking about the strongest sorcerer currently walking the face of the earth, the one individual who truly has the power, the growth potential, and the sheer presence to confront, rival, and even completely destroy an alien-level sorcerer on Sukuna's scale, that name is none other than Yuji Itadori. Beyond Yuji, there are virtually no remaining fighters on Earth who could realistically stop a catastrophic threat like Dabura. So the real question becomes, how did Yuji reach this level of power? What triggered such an overwhelming transformation? The answer is simple and terrifying. Yuji now possesses 9 overwhelmingly broken abilities. And what makes this even more frightening is that all of them still have room to evolve even further after the massive time skip that takes place decades later. The most striking of these abilities is Black Flash manipulation. In the core story, Black Flash is treated as a phenomenon that borders on the impossible to control. Sorcerers normally trigger it only by accident when they enter an extreme state of focus known as the zone. The chance of landing even a single Black Flash is said to be 1 in a million. Yuji, however, completely breaks that rule. He is not just lucky enough to trigger Black Flash, he can activate it at will. This becomes undeniable during the final battle against Sukuna. Yuji successfully unleashes 8 Black Flashes in a row. Many people believe it was only 7, but the first Black Flash occurs in the previous chapter, followed immediately by 7 consecutive hits in the next. And this is where many people misunderstand Black Flash. It is not simply a harder punch with flashy black effects. When Black Flash lands, the user's body and cursed energy output experience an explosive surge. The opponent's condition deteriorates, while the attacker's power skyrockets. Even Gojo Satoru's strength increased dramatically after landing only 2 Black Flashes on Sukuna. So imagine the impact of 8 consecutive Black Flashes. In fact, if Sukuna had not collapsed at that moment, there's a very real possibility that Yuji could have continued chaining Black Flash after Black Flash without stopping. The second equally terrifying ability is Yuji Itadori's domain expansion. To this day, the domain has not been fully revealed in the continuation of the series, and that uncertainty is precisely what makes it so disturbing. From the fragments of information we do have, Yuji's domain appears to operate under an extremely unfair set of rules. There are strong indications that Yuji can forcibly draw a target's soul into his own innate domain. This is suggested by the moment when Sukuna was pulled into Yuji's personal memories. If that interpretation is correct, then anyone trapped inside this domain becomes completely vulnerable to its unavoidable sure-hit effect. And this is where the third nightmare begins: Soul Dismantle. During the fight with Sukuna, even after Sukuna attempted to defend himself using Hollow Wicker Basket and Simple Domain, techniques that were already weakened after Nobara's interference, Yuji's Soul Dismantle still landed cleanly. The result was devastating. Sukuna's soul was gradually torn apart until it was finally forced out of Megumi's body. What makes this technique truly unfair is the fact that no physical defense can stop it. No matter how thick the armor, how tough the skin, or how monstrous the durability, it all becomes meaningless because the attack does not target the body. It destroys the soul itself. The foundation of this technique comes from another of Yuji's core abilities, Soul Punch, a strike designed from the very beginning to damage the soul directly. This leads into the next horrifying trait of Yuji's combat style. Every single one of his attacks carries soul damage. Yuji does not rely purely on raw physical strength. Every blow he delivers slams directly into the opponent's soul. That means even if his attack is blocked or partially stopped, as long as it connects, the damage still goes through. The pain is not just physical. It pierces into the very essence of the target. That is exactly why, despite repeatedly blocking and deflecting Yuji's strikes, Sukuna's body still felt as if it were being crushed from the inside out. What was being damaged was not merely his body, it was his soul. This is one of Yuji's most broken abilities. No matter how powerful the opponent's defense is, it ultimately becomes irrelevant. At this point, we can also see how Yuji has inherited and adapted Sukuna's own techniques. Because Yuji's body was submerged in Sukuna's cursed energy for so long, it gradually transformed into something similar to a cursed object that had fully adapted to Sukuna's techniques. Even Gojo Satoru himself once commented on this phenomenon. As a result, Yuji eventually gains the ability to use Cleave and Dismantle. However, Yuji's version of Dismantle evolves into Soul Dismantle, which annihilates the soul itself, while his Cleave manifests as massive scissor-like energy slashes that leave real, visible wounds. These techniques are not limited to inanimate objects. They cut through flesh and human bodies just as easily. We even witness Yuji sever Sukuna's leg with nothing more than a single touch of Cleave. At first, those techniques may not have appeared especially fast or efficient. But that perspective completely collapses when we remember one crucial fact. 83 years have passed since the final battle. It would make absolutely no sense for Yuji not to have refined and fully mastered every one of those abilities over such an enormous stretch of time. This brings us to Yuji's sixth major ability, Blood Manipulation. As a descendant of the Death Painting lineage, Yuji was ultimately destined to inherit the cursed techniques of his brothers, Choso, Eso, and Kechizu. During the final battle, we already witnessed him using Piercing Blood and Convergence. Blood manipulation is an incredibly versatile technique, and if Yuji truly mastered Flowing Red Scale, then his physical strength, speed, and endurance would skyrocket to terrifying levels. In practical terms, every aspect of his physical performance would ascend into something far beyond what ordinary sorcerers could ever reach. Next, we arrive at one of the most important techniques in the entire Jujutsu Kaisen world, Reverse Cursed Technique. Even during the main storyline, this ability was exceptionally rare. In the current timeline, only a handful of characters can use it, and in the sequel era, it is implied to be one of the last remaining god-tier techniques in existence. In the past, several legendary sorcerers possessed Reverse Curse Technique, and Yuji Itadori stand among them. During the final battle, Yuji had not yet fully mastered it and still required Choso's guidance. But now we are talking about a point 83 years later. With that much time, it would be absurd to think Yuji hasn't perfected this healing art, especially considering that in just 2 months he already learned an overwhelming number of complex techniques. Reverse Curse Technique becomes absolutely crucial when it belongs to a monster like Yuji. Imagine facing an opponent who can unleash chained black flashes, amplify his cursed energy output, overwhelm you with pressure, fail to finish you in one exchange, and then simply heal himself and continue fighting as if nothing happened. From every possible angle, that scenario is pure nightmare fuel. And it doesn't end there. In the sequel era, Yuji also possesses a direct counter to domain expansion. If Dabura or any future enemy ever acquires a domain, Yuji still holds the answer through simple domain. This is no surprise. We have already seen Tsurugi master it. The difference is that after decades of experience, Yuji's version would have matured into an extremely solid additional defensive layer within his combat arsenal. Now we return to Yuji's most fundamental technique, the very first one he ever learned and one of the key factors in defeating Sukuna, Divergent Fist. This technique causes every punch Yuji throws to produce two separate impacts. The initial physical strike, followed by a delayed energy shockwave that is even more powerful. The concept is simple, yet the effect is devastatingly unfair, especially when used as a surprise attack against an unprepared opponent. Sukuna's fatal mistake was underestimating this ability. Because he judged it as harmless, his guard dropped. And in Jujutsu combat, even the smallest lapse in awareness can decide the outcome of a battle. What makes all of this even more unbelievable is the fact that Yuji only needed 2 months to grasp and absorb so many advanced abilities. Now, after 83 years, his level of mastery must exist on a completely different plane of existence. And do not assume Yuji weakens with time. Within the lore of Jujutsu Kaisen, Modulo, it is stated that Yuji does not age. He remains permanently at his physical peak. The exact reason has yet to be fully revealed. It could stem from the curse left by his grandfather, or from the truth that Yuji is not entirely human, but rather a hybrid death painting, a being half-cursed spirit with a body similar to a cursed object. The full explanation will unfold as future chapters of Modulo are released. But one truth is already undeniable. Yuji Itadori's current existence is absurdly overpowered. When all of Yuji's abilities are assembled objectively, the scale of his power in the sequel era becomes impossible to ignore. We are not discussing 1 or 2 strong techniques. We are looking at a complete, nearly flawless combat system. Extreme physical offense, soul manipulation, high-level regeneration, supreme cursed energy control, layered defense, and decades of combat experience without physical decline. This is what separates Yuji from most other sorcerers. Most powerful characters specialize in one category: offense, technique, or domain. Yuji evolves into a god-tier all-rounder, capable of surviving and dominating in every form of battle: close-quarters combat, technical warfare, and domain confrontations alike. From a narrative standpoint, Yuji's dominance is not simply because he is the protagonist. His foundation was built from the very beginning. An abnormal body, a deep bond with Sukuna, extreme cursed energy adaptation, and natural compatibility with high-level techniques. All of these elements developed consistently until reaching their climax in the final battle, and then were magnified even further by the 83-year time skip. Under these conditions, it is completely reasonable to position Yuji as the ultimate threat to entities like Dabura and alien-level sorcerers on Sukuna's scale. In terms of raw power alone, Yuji may already surpass most legendary figures of the previous era, thanks to his unique fusion of brute force, soul-based techniques, healing abilities, and near-perfect energy control. And the most dangerous part of all, there is no sign that Yuji will ever weaken. No aging, no physical degradation, only decades of accumulated experience. As long as that remains true, every major conflict in the future will exist beneath the shadow of one name: Yuji Itadori. If the story continues along this trajectory, then it is no longer excessive to conclude that Yuji is not merely the strongest sorcerer on Earth, but has become one of the very pillars upon which the Jujutsu world itself now stands. Boff, that's really interesting, Nakama. Thank you so much for sticking with the story till the end. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the comments section below. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.